Hi, this is Steve Rigolosi, and tonight on Forgotten Mysteries, I have for you The Cask by Freeman Wills Crofts. And this is an entry in the Seagull Library of Mystery and Suspense. You can see it there. This was a series of reprints published by Norton in the 60s. And the editors, James Nelson, Vincent Starrett, really went into the history of mystery and its many genres and rediscovered and brought back to the public attention the bestsellers of yesteryear. And so I've reviewed other books in the Seagull series on this channel before, and I recommend it. You will find something very interesting in all of those books. More recently, the British Library has been republishing great sort of forgotten mystery works too. And so I love that. I just love when a publisher says, okay, we need to bring back the classics. We need to get a new generation of readers reading stuff that is unjustly not read enough nowadays. I will show you a sort of a funny thing about this book, which is if you look at its spine, you can see they have the author's name wrong here. The author's first name was Freeman, right? So what should have been here was Crofts, right? This would be like on one of my books if someone said Steve and then the title. So, I wonder if that makes this book worth millions of dollars, like those famous postage stamps of the airplane flying upside down. Anyone wants to give me $1 million for this book, feel free to contact me and we will make the arrangements immediately, if not sooner. So before I get started, just a little bit about Freeman Wills Crofts. This was his first book. The Cask was published in 1920, so we're really going way back in the history of the genre. And he had quite a lengthy career in writing novels and short stories. I think the last book was published around 1958. So he had, like a 4-decade career, which, wow, God bless him for that. This was his first book, and he was known in later books for his series detective Inspector French. And in fact, a few years after The Cask came a book called Inspector French's Greatest Case, which was also really well received. And I should just say, Mr. Crofts was an Irishman who, spent a lot of time in England. And again, I just marvel at the ability of the UK countries, and, well, I also have to include the Republic of Ireland in there, even though it's not part of the UK, but just that part of the world. These people knew how to write mysteries, just the way that the Scandinavians know how to write them today. They had an amazing tradition to draw on, and they just innovated left and right. And, I just love that. I love innovation, and I love authors trying to do, new and different things, all with the goal of fooling the reader or pulling the wool over their eyes and coming up with this really clever ending. So, and you may also notice you see more of me on screen today, because I realized that the way I was making these videos, my chin was almost flush with the bottom of the screen. It's probably not the best way to make videos, but, I'm just learning this whole vlogging thing as I go along. So, welcome to more of me. I do exist below the neck. So, let me tell you a little bit about The Cask and what makes it special. The first is that I believe it is one of the earliest entries in what became the police procedural novel. So not so much a private detective or a novice or an amateur trying to figure out a crime, but really a case that is followed by police and investigators doing what we think of as the policeman's job: interviewing suspects, checking times, checking motives, checking alibis, talking to various different people, calling on expertise of various people involved with the police force, like forensic specialists and that sort of thing. And that is very much what you will find in this book. It is an investigation that leaves no stone unturned from the policeman's point of view to get to who done it. And it's just really was interesting to me to watch this in effect, because a lot of the modern police procedurals that I have read, when I say modern, I mean, the heyday of the genre was maybe like the 60s through the 80s. A lot of those books combine multiple plots, and there's some juggling going on. And even though there's good investigation, it's not quite so letter by letter, word by word, step by step as it is in the Cask. And so I guess that's my first bit of, critical piece of information for you, which is that if you like that kind of very detail-oriented, painstaking approach to police work, then I think this is the book for you. If you like something that is breezier, faster, not quite as complicated, this demands more of you. It demands more of your attention. And I'll get into the reasons for that in a little bit. But let me just tell you about the plot. So it's sort of a simple, on the surface, plot where Cask, hence the title, arrives at a port in England, and it's marked statuary, and it is to be brought to the addressee. But when it's unloaded, one of the staves sort of cracks open, and it starts dripping out not just sawdust, but gold sovereigns, money, good hard gold sovereigns from 1920s England. And so the haulage company realizes something's going on, and they realize even more something is going on when they see a woman's arm protruding from the cask. And it takes off from there, right? The question is, who sent the cask? Who is the real recipient? Who is the victim? What was the motive for killing her? How did she get from where she was into the cask into England? And one of the really fun parts of the first part of this book, there's 3 parts, is that the mysteries just sort of keep piling up. All those questions that I just asked, it's like as soon as one question kind of gets quasi-resolved, another question arises that keeps the investigation moving forward. And then in the second part of the book, we move to France for the more of the investigation. And then the third part of the book is a combination of London and France. I see London, I see France, I see the Cask's underpants. Okay, that was a little immature, but whatever. So a technique that Crofts uses in here that I found very effective is, I guess I would call it the passing of the baton, in that once one professional in the police department gets to the answers that he is capable of getting to, then the next part of the case is passed off to another investigator, for example, the authorities in France, until they can take things as far as they can. And then it's passed on again to sort of a private investigator who is trusted by the police forces and who's very good at getting results. So we move from maybe a little bit of a police procedural more into a detective kind of thing, although it's still very, very much based on getting information and really checking out alibis. Alibis is really the key thing about this book, trying to figure out who did what and to whom. So our sort of dogged, not exciting, but gets the job done PI in the last part of the book is Monsieur Latouche, Georges Latouche. And he builds on the work of what his colleagues have done and finds his person, finds out who done it, finds out the motivation, rather brilliantly clears up, finds the holes, the really minute holes in the lies and in the stories that have been told to bring us all full circle to finding out the answer to all the questions that I mentioned at the start of this video. So I really enjoyed this book because I do like police procedurals and I like to see the precursors. And I admired Crofts for his ability to have kind of a single-minded focus on getting his story told and moving the plot forward by getting answers and conundrums, sort of all intermingled as he goes through the book. It's very, very competent in that way. And so if you like that kind of intense, close watching, I think this is the book for you. The downside of that is that the book isn't breezy. It's not a fast read. And I think it's because you're paying such close attention. You really don't want to read these sentences quickly or skim past a paragraph because you might miss something important. Although another thing that I have to give Crofts credit for is he's very, very, very good at pausing at different points in the book and reviewing what is known and what is unknown and the questions that have been answered and the questions that still need to be answered. So that's kind of like figure out who you are as a reader, and I think that will tell you whether or not this type of book is your cup of tea. One thing about the book that I personally was not crazy about, but this is just one of my quirks or likes/dislikes as a reader, is I tend to get impatient when a lot of the plot revolves around public transportation schedules. It's England and Europe in the 20s, so it's railway schedules and ship schedules and when is the tide in and when is the tide out, and you almost really need to have a pencil and paper at your side as you're reading this book so you can keep track of all these times and places and destinations and stops along railway lines, stops along various parts of the journey of this piece of public transportation. One thing I found really fun to read was, I don't know if this still occurs in Paris today, but there was almost like a water bus that ran down the Seine where you could, pick up the boat and travel down the Seine to your next port in, your next stop, I guess, in Paris. And that was fun to read about. Like I said, I don't know if they still do it, but maybe they should. I guess it's not that I don't have the head for details. It's just that I don't find the details of railway schedules all that interesting. And so I found myself maybe a little not paying as much attention when I got to those railway pages, just because, keeping tracks of times and places and dates, it's just not my, it's in my skill set if I wanted it to be, but I guess I didn't want to pay that much attention because there are so many other, thousands of other details you have to pay attention to in this book. It is pretty intricate, and there are some nice red herrings thrown at you, and puzzlements and oddities, and just not, and turnabouts. So, the book is very highly respected, as I believe it should be. And the key thing, I'm harping on this, is whether you want something faster or whether you like something more painstaking. I thought that the resolution made plenty of sense. In a way, there aren't that many suspects. And so you kind of know or suspect that it's one of two people, both of whom are really well alibied. The book becomes an exercise in breaking down alibis and just finding those little threads still hanging or not quite tied to the rest of the carpet that lead us to the solution. Excuse me, I'm very congested today. So that's what I've got for you. The Cask by Freeman Wills Crofts. I have other books in the Seagull series of mystery and suspense, so I'll be reviewing those for you as I read them. What I find interesting is I don't know that Norton reset the type on these books. What I suspect is that they, licensed or picked up the typesetting from an earlier edition of the book and just used that, because all of the books in the series have different fonts, different interior designs, different styles. Some of them have more leading, which is space between the lines, which more leading means fewer words on a page and easier to read. Less leading means more words, more lines on a page and harder to read. And this one, the leading was pretty tight. I can sort of show you that, right? Right here, you can see, right. So you can see the pages are pretty tightly packed. Although I have another book in the series waiting to be read, The Green Archer by Edgar Wallace, another of the great names. And in that one, not only is the leading practically non-existent, the type is so tiny. I am definitely going to have to wear a different pair of glasses when I read that book, because I know it's going to be more taxing on my eyes. And listen, I can't deny getting older, but it really, all of this makes me remember what a debt we owe to book designers, to the interior designers, who their decisions really have a very strong impact on our reading experience. Choosing the right font, the right leading, the right design, it all adds up to, in good cases, into sort of this perfect little package. We lose some of that, I think, in our e-readers, but in printed books, the interior design can really go a long way to making a reader enjoy the book or find it more difficult to read and make it more difficult to pick up. So, The Cask by Freeman Wills Crofts, with our poor victim in here who, poor thing, did not deserve what she got. And that's all I've got for you tonight. So thank you for listening, and I will be back next time. Good night.